Hi you guys, this is IM Notes Unit 1, Number 1. So what you want to do here is at the beginning of every lesson, there's going to be a FLT. So make sure that you guys are writing this down here and then play whenever you're ready, okay? Feel free to pause at any moment. This is a way to just keep the videos a lot shorter, but you want to pause and play whenever you're ready so that it goes at your pace, okay? So here we go. Given an expression, I will be able to classify polynomials and add and subtract polynomials by combining like terms. So this right here is really just a review from IM2. Don't worry if you have no idea what this means. It has been a long time since IM2, so my job here is to kind of refresh your memory, okay? So make sure that every notes that you guys submit, it starts off with an FLT right here, and that you're writing down all the examples and you're working it out with me, okay? And the purpose of that is not just to make you guys write stuff down, but you're more likely to retaining the information when you write things down versus just watching the videos. So that's the rationale behind it, okay? All right, so here we go. So here's example 1. Well, before we get to it, let's call this classifying polynomials. And I'm going to write it out with you guys so you can kind of imagine being in class. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of comfort. Classifying polynomials. So here you just have to remember how to kind of name your polynomials, okay? So every polynomials is kind of like how we identify ourselves. We have a first and a last name. So polynomials also have a first and a last name, okay? So the first name, and there's the last name, okay? So the first and the last name, the first name is going to be the degree. And I'll explain what that means, okay? The last name is going to be the number of terms. And if you recognize this, great. If not, don't worry, okay? My job is to kind of refresh your memory here. So every time you classify a polynomial, you always have to have a first and a last name, okay? The first name is in regard to the degree, and the last name is in regard to the number of terms. So here's how you guys do it. This is a quick cheat sheet to it. So a degree, that just means the largest exponent. And again, you guys should be writing this down, okay? So the largest exponent. So the largest exponent, let's say, is a degree 0, okay? Meaning there are no variables, okay, in your expression. You would call that just a constant when it doesn't have a variable, okay? So something like 4, 5, 6, -2, +5. If it's just a number and there's nothing next to it, then you would call it a constant. Now, if the degree is 1, you would call it linear. Okay, an example of something that's linear is like x, 4x plus 2, 3x minus 5, 1/2 x plus 3. If you notice over here, if you look at the variable actually doesn't have an exponent visible, but there's actually an invisible 1 right there. And that is referring to the degree. So if the highest degree, if the largest exponent is 1, you would call it a linear, okay? So if it's a constant, so going back to this here, if it's a constant, you have something like 12, okay? Notice how here, 12 is not the degree, 12 is just a constant here, but here there's no x, meaning that the degree is actually 0, okay? So you call it a constant. All right, let's keep going. So if it's 2, that means the largest exponent is 2, so you would call that a quadratic, okay? Quadratic is similar to the word square because a quadrilateral has 4 sides. It's a square. So if you have something like x squared minus 4, x squared plus 2x minus, plus 3, 5x squared minus 4x minus 1 half. If you guys take a look over here, the largest degree, the largest exponent is 2. Now in this example right here, there is a linear term, but again, remember, degree is referring to the largest exponent. So out of these three terms here, the largest exponent is 2. So we know to call it a quadratic. Okay? Here's one more. If your largest exponent is 3, you would call it a cubic. And really there's more, but that's as far as you guys need to know. I'll put one more out there. 4 is actually a quartic, but really we don't use it as often as we need to, okay? So as long as you guys know up to the 3rd degree, you guys are okay, right? So again, all that right there is the first name to classifying, all right? Now the last name is in reference to the number of terms. The number of terms, okay, is separated by a plus or a minus sign. I'm going to give you guys an example. So if you have only one term, you call it a monomial. Mono meaning 1. So if you just have 5x or x squared or 3, when you're looking at the last name, you don't look at the degree, you just look at the number of terms here. So separately, all of these only have one term, so you call it a monomial. Okay? Now there are 2 terms. 2, just like a bicycle, or seasons, or twice a year, you call it a binomial. Okay, so an example of that would be like 3x plus 2. Notice how there are 2 terms there. 5x minus 3. Those are 2 terms there, so you would call it a binomial. X squared plus 4x. That is also 2 terms. Now, if you were to call this by its first name, you would call it a quadratic. Okay, if you call it by its last name, you would call it a binomial. And if you call it by its full name, if you're classifying it, you would call it a quadratic binomial. Okay, let's keep going. 3 terms. Can you guys guess what that is? Okay, 3. Kind of like bicycle with 2 wheels. 3 wheels would be a tricycle, or in this case, a trinomial. All right. Now, when you get to 4 or more, it's really just a poly, meaning many, nomial. Okay? So when you classify, let me give you an example of a trinomial, sorry. A trinomial would be something like x squared plus 2x minus 3. 1, 2, 3 terms, okay? 4x squared minus 2x minus 6. That is also 3 terms, okay? So let's give you some examples here. Example 1, classify the polynomial. Okay, and I'm moving a little bit fast, so really pause wherever you guys need to pause, okay? So we'll do a bunch here. Let's say I wrote 5x cubed plus 2x, okay? Play whenever you're ready. When you want to classify, remember, you want to name it. You want to give it a first name and a second name, a first and a last name, okay? Remember that the first one is the degree. The last one is the number of terms. And you wouldn't be doing this every single time. This is really just for the sake of your notes. You're going to be able to cut corners later, okay? So when you take a look at this expression, okay, we call it an expression because there's no equal sign, okay? When you look at this expression, the largest degree is what, right? The largest degree is a 3 here. So when you have a degree of 3, we look back at our chart. And again, you guys could use this here, but slowly try to pull away from it, okay? Since it's a degree of 3, we're going to call it a cubic, okay? And the last name is going to be the number of terms. So here we have 1, 2. two terms, 2 is going to be a binomial. So altogether, this is going to be a cubic binomial. That's it. We're just naming it. All right? So here's some for you guys to practice. Okay? Here's part B. X squared plus 3x minus 2. Okay? Go ahead and pause there and practice yourself. And then once you're ready, press play, and then I'll reveal the answer there, okay? Okay, so in this case, the first name would be the degree, which is 2. The largest degree is 2, so that would be a quadratic. And the last name is the number of terms. We have 1, 2, 3. That would be a trinomial. Okay, hopefully you guys got that. But let's keep trying it out. Oops, something happened there. Okay, let's keep going. Again, part C. Let's do this one here of 5x. Okay, so pause and then play when you're ready. Classify this polynomial here. Okay, here, first name, largest degree is 1, the invisible 1, so we know it's linear, and there's only one term, so it's going to be a monomial. Okay? All right, here's one more just to make sure. Let's do negative 2x cubed plus 3x squared minus 4x plus 16. Go ahead and try that. Pause and then play when you're ready to reveal the answer, okay? Okay, so here we go. Largest degree here is 3, so we call it a cubic. And last name is number of terms. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember, the terms are separated by a plus or a minus sign. So here we have 4 terms. Anytime we have 4 or more, we call it a polynomial. Okay, so why do we learn this? So when you guys get into higher math, it's important that you know how to classify real quick so you know what type of function you're dealing with, okay? And we'll use that word a lot later in the semester. So this right here is just a quick review for you guys, all right? So there you go. We go back to our FLT. Do we know how to classify? We do, okay? So the only thing left is, well, how do we know how to add or subtract polynomials, okay? So here's the last part for you guys. Think back to, oh gosh, when you were little, right? If you had 4 purple circles and you had 3 green circles, can we say that we have 7 green circles? Right? And hopefully your answer is no. And the reason why we can't do that is because although they're all circles, they're not the same color. Right? So they have to be the same color and the same shape, right? Now, if we were to just talk about circles in general, we can say we have 7 circles, but we can't say that we have 7 green circles or 7 purple circles. That rhymes. Okay? So it's kind of the same thing when you guys are adding and subtracting polynomials. Okay? So, for instance, here we go. I'll start off with example 2. I'll jump straight into it. Example 2, I'll just say simplify. Again, if I'm going too fast, again, pause and play at your pace here, okay? Let's say we wanted to add x squared plus 10x plus 6x plus 3. Okay? So there are a lot of terms here. When you're adding, it's super easy. So you got to ask yourself, what kind of terms do you have here, okay? Now, this first term here, what would the first name be for just that term, okay? What would the name of this be if we're looking at just a degree? You would call this a quadratic, right? this term right here would be called a what? If we were to look at it separately, that would be a linear. Okay, 6x alone is just a linear because both of their degrees are that invisible 1 there, okay? And this last one here, well, if it doesn't have a variable next to it, the degree is 0, and we call that a constant. That's a number that never changes, right? That's what it means to be constant. So adding it is easy because a lot of people, when they see x's, they want to put the x's together, but it's a little bit more different than that. It's kind of like that example with the circles. It's not enough that they both share the same variable. They have to share the same degree as well. So although x squared and 10x have an x in it, we can't combine it because they don't have the same degree. So we have to combine those that have the same first name or the same degree here. And the only ones that are the same is these two. So 10x plus the 6x gives you what, right? So if you have $10 and $6, you have $16. Okay? Now, these two are lonely. They don't have anything to combine with, so we'll just bring it down. X squared, that's a positive 16x, plus the 3. And there you go. And if I ask you guys to classify, would you know how, right? What would you call this here? Play when you're ready, okay? This right here would be a quadratic trinomial. The degree is 2. And then there are 3 terms, so we call it a trinomial, okay? Now, when you're adding and subtracting, there's really no need to classify it. That's really me just helping you guys practice, okay? But that's pretty much it. Let's try a few examples. Here's part B. Let's say I asked, well, what's 6x squared plus 10x minus 1 plus negative 5x squared minus 2x plus 1. Okay, there's a lot going on here. Play whenever you're ready, okay? So what I like to do is I like to give some symbols to whenever I could put two things together, okay? The easiest one to spot are the linear ones because they're the ones that just have an x in front of it. So here, I'm going to underline my linears. And the only two linears I have are these two, all right? And you could color code if you want. I noticed that I have 2 quadratic terms, and you could use a different color. Some people like to draw a different shape around it. So I'm just offering some suggestions here. And if it doesn't have a variable next to it, I'll probably use a different color. I'll circle these. So here we go. Let's take a look at our purple squares, right? We have 6x squared plus negative 5x squared. So if you have 6 plus a negative 5, we go back to what we learned a couple years ago, right? What do we do? If you have $6 and then you spend $5, or some people like to memorize the, same signs we add, different signs we subtract, and then you keep the sign of the larger number. That's all. That's when you'll be exact. Something like that, right? So there we go. So we know we're going to have some type of x squares here. How many x squares do I have? Well, I have 6x squares, and then I take away 5x squares, so I actually only have 1x squared left. Okay? Now, if it's a 1, you could actually leave it invisible and just write x squared, but I'm just going to put 1x squared there. Okay? Let's take a look at our linear terms. We have 10x plus negative 2x. You have 10 and you take away 2. You're going to be left with 8 more. You keep the sign of the larger number. And then negative 1 plus 1. They're exact opposites of each other. So if you have $1 and then you spend $1, you're actually going to have 0 left. but who writes 0, right? So really your final answer is really just x squared plus 8x. Okay? And you don't have to write out the classification for it, but just say it out to yourselves what that would be. This right here would be a quadratic binomial. Quadratic because of the 2, and binomial because there's 2 terms there, okay? So hopefully you feel a little bit more confident with this. I'm going to leave you with this last example, subtracting, okay? So when you're subtracting, there's only one thing that you got to keep in mind. So let's say we had 4x squared plus 6x plus 7 minus negative 8x squared minus 2x plus 6. Okay, I always like to put my lines through my 7s so it doesn't look like a 1. Okay, play whenever you're ready. Now here, the only thing different is there's this minus sign right here. Back when you have something in front of a parentheses, you were taught to distribute that, okay? So I'll show you a little shortcut here. When you're distributing a minus sign, you actually have to multiply by a negative. The easiest thing to do here is when you're multiplying by a negative, really what you're doing is you're flipping your sign. Because think about it, if you multiply a negative times a negative, that becomes a positive 8x squared. If you multiply a negative times a negative 2x, that becomes a positive 2x. If you multiply a negative times a positive 6, you get a negative 6. But the shortcut is, notice how the signs here are just opposite. So that's your shortcut there. So you can't combine anything yet until you've broken down that minus sign, okay? So everything else I'm going to bring down here, I have a 4x squared plus the 6x plus the 7, and then we go back to our normal routine. Here I have 2 quadratic terms. Here I have 2 linear terms. And here I have 2 constants. That's another way of keeping track of your terms. If you don't like drawing the squares or the circles around it, that's another way to go about it. You could also color coordinate if you wanted to, okay? So here we go. If we look at the quadratic terms, we have 4x squared plus 8x squared gives us how many x squares, right? So that's going to be 4 plus 8, that's going to be 12, okay? Now the next one, we have 6x plus 2x. So how many x's do we have? 6 plus 2 is obviously 8, positive. And here we have a positive 7 and a minus 6, right? You have $7, you spend $6. What's going to be left? So 7 minus 6 is obviously a positive 1. You keep the sign of the larger number, and that's it. We have a quadratic trinomial here. So hopefully you feel a little bit confident with that. I'm going to end it with this last example, and then you're all done for the day, okay? So here, write this last one down. Okay, go ahead and try this one here. Play whenever you're ready, okay? Please show all of your work. And again, play when you have an answer, and then we'll double check. Okay, so first thing we want to do is we want to take care of this minus sign. We can distribute it, or we can just flip the sign, so that becomes a plus 6x and a minus 2. Everything on the left over here, I'm just going to bring down. Okay. I like to underline it. I don't like to draw circles or squares around it. Quadratic, I notice that that's the only quadratic term. I actually have 2 linear terms here, and then I have some constants. So if there's nothing to combine it with, I'll just bring that down. Negative 2x squared. If I take a look at my 2 linear terms, how many x's will I have, right? So negative 4 plus 6, that's going to be a positive 2. Okay, you have $6, you spend $4, you're going to have $2 left. And if you're taking a look at positive 3 and minus 2, 3 minus 2 is just a positive 1. And that's it. Okay. Now, just one last thing, because I did see it in your homework. You just got to watch out for this. If I give you guys, this is just knowing how to read a statement. You guys read this as 6 minus 3. Okay? Another way to say this is you're subtracting 3 from 6. It's a little bit backwards, but it's the key word from here. So when you're using that word, you actually read it from right to left. So 3 minus 6 here is really you saying subtracting 6 from the 3. Okay? So if I said subtract 5x plus 4 from x squared plus 2x minus 3, this is really you saying x squared plus 2x minus 3 minus the quantity 5x plus 4. You guys will see that in your homework, so watch out for it. And then you could go ahead and wrap this one up here. Actually, go ahead and do this one. Play when you're ready. We have a minus sign here, so we're going to have to flip. Now, if you have a plus sign in the middle, then you go on your merry way and just do the rest, okay? You never have to flip it. You only have to flip it when you have a minus sign in the middle. So there I flipped my 2 signs. Everything else I'm going to bring down. Okay, here we go. Quadratic term, that's only one. I have 2 linear terms. And then I have a constant there. So that's going to be x squared by itself. Positive 2x, negative 5x. Different signs. I know I'm definitely going to subtract. 5 and 2. Subtract is going to give me 3, but I have more negatives. Keep the sign of the larger number. It's going to be negative 3x. For the constant, negative 3 and negative 4, same signs we add. But we keep the sign of the larger number. So if you borrow $3 and you borrow 4 more, you still owe $7. That's how I think of it, but it's up to you, okay? And here we're left with a quadratic trinomial, okay? So hopefully that was a good review for you guys. Don't worry if this is the first time you guys saw it. As long as you guys learn it, that's the whole point here, okay? Now, once you're done with your notes, take out that scanner app. Remember, a lot of people use Adobe Scan on their phones. Now, if you have trouble finding a free scanner app, just text me and let me know. But you're going to scan your notes. Okay? So take pictures of it, scan it. Make sure you turn it into a PDF. And then once you do that, go ahead and upload that PDF to the Canvas webpage on this assignment here, okay? Once you're done submitting your notes, you're more than welcome to start on that homework number 1 assignment, okay? Which is all of this. So good luck. Text me if you guys have questions, okay?